Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So I'm sure you've heard this term before. They're a born leader. They're born to lead. Apparently, that's not true. People aren't born leaders. Goes against what I actually thought. We're going to learn more about that today. He helps people up their game when it comes to leadership in many different areas with the right resources, the training, the coaching. Saterman Connect is a company out of New York City, and he is the CEO, the man behind it. Josh Saterman joins us on the program. How are you doing?
I am excellent. How are you today, Steve?
Really good and intrigued about this because I really thought that some people just are born with it. Like they just bring it when it comes to leadership. But that's not apparently true. Am I getting this right?
Well, it's on the right track. It's certainly in the right direction. So, it's a fun topic to actually explore is what does leadership look like? How do you build the skills? Are you born with it? Is it natural? Is it nurture? Is it all the things that go with that? So we'll talk about that today a lot.
I don't even know where to begin because I have visuals of people who I feel are true leaders. And I
Yeah.
wonder if it's partly in their DNA or they had a certain amount of confidence in the beginning and then it just kind of slow rolled into this leadership role where people follow, respect all of that.
I think this is a personal comment, but this is about my journey. And so I'll share that I do think that there is something as wild as it may sound to some of our viewers or listeners that is about magnetism. You are drawn to people, right? It's an energy of,
Yep.
I want to listen to that person more. So I think there's certainly something to be said for, in a sense, attraction. I don't obviously mean that from a different kind of way.
I gotcha.
Although I guess that's true too. But from a business lens and from a leadership lens, I've learned over the years that there's a lot of different kinds of leaders and a lot of different styles of leadership and a lot of different philosophies and models that people use in their leadership. And that's why we call it experience, and that's why we call it engagement, and that's why we call it journey,
Mm.
is there's so much that you learn along the way. And those that sit in growth mindset, we've talked about that in podcasts previously. Those that sit in this idea of, thanks to Carol Dweck, right? Continuous learning, this idea that our brains can keep, regardless of age, it's age agnostic, it's industry agnostic, it's title agnostic, it's right. It's this idea of mental choice that you can choose to learn. Then yeah, leadership isn't something you're born with. Leadership is something that you might have aspects of innately and you get to build upon that and, like clay, morph it into the kind of leader that not only you want to be, but the leader that others really respect and wish to follow.
I see it both ways. Like you'll see somebody who from the beginning was, even as a kid, resilient. They just kind of steamrolled. They kind of, were the center of attention. And then that turned into a leader. And then I see the others, and you hear those stories where somebody was dejected, bullied, beat on. They pushed forward. They found something within them to push forward and became a leader. And then it went on and on and on. So I see both sides of that. But what I'm getting from you, by and large, that a leader is always learning. A leader is always learning. It's never well, I'm at the top here and I'm just going to sit on my throne and, you know, I don't want to say make demands, but make suggestions and then, orchestrate it. No, it's organic. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've said this in a previous podcast. It's a little crude in French, so for any of those who speak French or a French background, but the expression, slightly more crude than I'm about to say, is as high as a person sits, a person still sits on their ass. And so the one thing that I would offer that is such a detractor from leadership is this idea of ego. The loudest voice in the room is sometimes perceived as the leader.
Mm,
But the reality is that leadership is all about followership. That's why the book, and I'm blanking unfortunately on the author, but the book Servant Leadership is so powerful. Is I find my job as a CEO, aside from setting the vision and the strategy of the company, is to be a linebacker and just clear paths for people to get their jobs done. If
mm.
anything, that is probably more important is because of the brain trust, the amount of experience, energy, wisdom, thoughtfulness, research that the team brings to the organization. The most important thing I can do is clear pathways and get out of their way and let them get their jobs done. So leadership comes in all shapes and sizes. It's not reserved for CEO. It's not reserved for C-suite. It's not reserved for a fancy title. What leadership means is that when you speak, somebody wants to listen. Leadership means that when you have an idea, people take your idea seriously. And even if it's a not yet, even if it's a no, people still listen to your idea because you're thoughtful, you're caring, you're thinking about that cross section between how people show up and how business results happen. You make them happen, but happen nonetheless. So I think it's really important to take a step back. And it's not about being born with it. That's not what success looks like. What success looks like is thinking about your model and investing the time and the energy in creating the kind of leader that you wish to be.
Do you feel that all leaders, so I'm going to go, maybe on a limb here, sometimes say, am I cut out for this job? Should
Oh,
I be doing what I'm doing here? I mean, they may
absolutely.
look like, the strongest person. People listen to them. They're just a nice person. It's all good. But do all leaders do that?
Well, I don't know if all,
Or should they? Maybe I'll throw that in there.
maybe.
Right?
Well, it's such a great question. I think, well, first of all, it's hard to speak for everyone, but I love the question. What I would say is that as humans, right, there are statistics, lots of sources out there, but there are statistics around 40 to 70 thoughts per day. Humans have about 40 to 70 thoughts per day. It's a wide gap, so it's a wide range. But nonetheless, even if it's 40,000, right, you're talking about a lot of thoughts per minute. And
Mm,
so I would say, yeah, probably some of those thoughts, because we are biometrically trained, right, to think in terms of a fight, flight, fright, that we're going to have some imposter syndrome. I think that's common, right? That goes back to, who do you surround yourself with? When you're feeling less confident, how do you get yourself more confident? But
mm,
more than that, is I think this is going back to, are you a vulnerable leader? Are you able to say, I made a mistake? I'll give an example. It's someone on my team. I won't say their name to be thoughtful and confidential. But last week, I was moving with speed, right? As much as I teach this stuff, I still have to take a pause. I'm still human. I make mistakes. It's not about me. I don't want to make this about me, but I had an aha because she sent a very, very, very thoughtful email, and I responded with the one thing that needed to be changed. 99.9% of that email was perfection. There are things that I can't teach. When we talk about leadership qualities, there are things that you can't teach. You can't teach sense of urgency, somebody's desire to move with purpose. You can't teach genuine curiosity. You can teach how to ask a question, but you can't tell somebody they must lead by asking questions. You can't teach positive attitude. You
mm.
can't teach these things. And this person really demonstrated these unbelievable leadership skills. And I answered with a critique. Now, the critique was right. We had to make a change. But on reflection, about 25 minutes later, I fucked up. I was not a good leader. And I sent that email and I sent it back out to everybody, not just to the person, but to everybody that was on that email. And I said, I apologize. I was moving with speed. I
Mm.
made a mistake. This email is amazing. Thank you for being proactive, having sense of urgency, being genuinely curious, right? Promoting and acknowledging, being respectful of what this leader, regardless of title, regardless of hierarchy, regardless of, right? This leader had leadership. So I come back to it may have been a flighting moment for her, but for me, it was a learning moment as a leader to sometimes slow down, to sometimes think about how you balance giving that compliment with giving that opportunity, not criticism, but hey, something
Hmm.
was missed here and we have an opportunity to join brain powers to get to something better. And so I want to encourage the audience to slow down, to take a breath, to think about what is your brand? What are you trying to do as a leader? If you're bullying or you're speaking over and interrupting people, if you're dominating the conversation, if you're not admitting when you make a mistake, quite frankly, those are weaknesses. And those are controllable weaknesses because that's your choice. That goes back to nature versus nurture. That goes back to you can be born with natural magnetism, but you can show up as an asshole, and then you're not your best leader.
I've shared with others this phrase that you shared with me. Um, it's about the be kind.
Mm, hmm
I want to put it, I make sure it's accurate as I repeat it. Give it to me again.
Say what you mean what
Mean
you
what you
say,
say,
don't say it
it
mean.
mean.
That's one. That's my
Yeah.
one. And
Yep.
then Brene Brown says, clear is kind, kind is clear.
I've been in so many situations where I use one word, clarity. Can we get some clarity? I don't mean it in a bad way. Just like I need to
No,
be
not at
more,
all.
like, can we be clear? Like,
Not at all.
give me a little bit more. Um, in your situation, it sounds like you should have accented the positivity from that person's email. Am I detecting that right?
Yeah, I think, I believe part of our values, fulfillment, gratitude, growth mindset, vulnerability, courage, growth mindset. Those are our six values. I know those six values off the top of my head. For any of you executives sitting on this call, if you don't know your company values, it's time to refresh them. Shameless plug, call Saterman Connect, because we'll help you do that. That's what we do, right? Is we support organizations with powerful mission statements, value statements, leadership, principle statements, right? This is how we hold ourselves accountable to our behaviors. So yeah, it's not to have sunshine out of your tushy. It's not about that. It's about staying focused on what's possible and bringing positivity and promoting, being intentional about saying, great job. I like what you did here because that's how people then replicate good behavior. They do it again because they realize, hey, I'm being thanked for something I've done. I'm going to do it again. Humans like to be appreciated. Humans like to be valued. So again, notice I haven't talked about it all today being the loudest voice in the room.
Mm.
I haven't talked about what seat you sit in at the conference table. I haven't talked about that because to me, leadership is not about position. To me, leadership is how you treat people and how you lift people up, leveraging their best strengths. That's why Saterman Connect is a strength-based organization. Is I would much rather amplify your strengths than try to fix your weaknesses. That's not a winning strategy.
Even the visual of the table, I've always not wanted, if I was ever in that position, to sit at the end of the table. I want to sit next to people. I don't want to
Yeah,
sit in front of them.
100%.
And what you said before, we've talked about it previously, but it is foundational. What are your values, your company's values? What do you stand for? What are your morals? I challenge anybody right now, if it's your organization, maybe you work for one, answer that question, please. Because I've been in that situation. I've worked for others. I don't even know. I don't even, and I don't mean some boilerplate. We're here, it's always been
No,
in a broadcast marketing arena for me, but it, I don't mean just the basics. I mean going a layer or two deeper
that's right.
about people
That's
and
right.
what's our why here at this company? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
I'll give a couple examples to just even exemplify where you went just now. And again, I don't want to say higher than thou. I make mistakes. That's why I shared and I led with a mistake. But these are things I've learned, and that goes back to how do you learn in your leadership journey so that it becomes about that journey? And again, a lot of these are not my ideas. I learned from mentors, sponsors, advocates, leaders who I actually didn't like, but they also brought value in pockets that I learned from that I said I do want to do, or some things I didn't want to do. Let me give a couple examples. When I go out to a big restaurant and somebody wants, whether it's a client, a partner, my team, doesn't matter. When our team goes out, we find round tables. We find round tables. I've had CEOs of companies that we work with, board members. I've had chairs of boards say to me, "We don't do that. We sit at long tables." And I'll say, "Well, respectfully, I'm going to push back. It's your choice. This is your dinner. But I don't want to sit at the head of a table. I want to talk to people. So
Yeah.
even if it's $1,000 or $2,000 more for this organization, the price of not connecting all of us, not about me, not about you, all of us, we're all at dinner. Inevitably somebody is going to feel like they're sitting on the end and they can't talk to somebody over here. Now, one could argue you can't talk across a table of 10 or 8. One could argue that, but one could also argue that you're still a part of the greater conversation. And so I learned very early on that I either want tables of 6 or less, because 6 I can talk to, right?
Ah,
Across diagonal. And if I need to stay the extra night, or I need to carve out and have a lunch separate from a dinner, right? But I'm very intentional about when I'm sitting down to have a conversation, what is the seating? Very intentional about that because that's how you make people feel included. And by the way, there is always an opportunity to make the table bigger. It is never
so true.
about shrinking the table. It is always about expanding the table. Now,
This
I'm
is
not saying that
exactly what I was saying before, and that was just me, my feelings. You're the
yeah,
expert, and I'm as I have a visual now of a. We're almost out of time for today. At a meeting, I'm not going to go into detail on it. However, it was an annual gathering, and it was a casual kind of feel. But it was one table this way, one this way, then this way, and I even said to the CEO, I was sitting next to her, and I said, "How come we picked this place?"
yeah.
And she said, "Well, I had my insert name on staff. Find it. The prices were reasonable." I'm thinking, I don't want to judge anybody, but there's many other places we could have gone to where we could have moved the tables around. In this place, you couldn't have because it was a little cramped. But to your point, I didn't get to talk with three-quarters of the people there because
Yeah,
I couldn't even move.
I've asked organizations to not take us to a steak dinner and to take us to a pizza restaurant.
I love
Again,
it.
great to have a fillet, but more important to have a bunch of pizza pies and get to know each other better.
And
So
then and then the
these are
money that's left over that would have went to that $60, $50 steak, whatever it is, give back to the employees.
1,000%. These are choices we make as leaders. These are choices we make as leaders every day, every day, every day.
Yeah. I mean,
So
how wonderful. I'm just in my mind, just thinking now, how great that would be. Where we're just going to do some pizza. We were going to do a more expensive restaurant. We're going to give everybody a insert amount gift card, to whatever, Starbucks. I'd appreciate that. Whatever.
a $20 Starbucks gift card or Dunkin' or Pete's or fill in the gap, right? Wherever you sit in the world, I think it's again, go back to what I said about my values. Our
Yeah.
values at the company, my values, our values, the company values,
Yeah.
gratitude, courage, growth mindset, vulnerability, fulfillment. And the most important one in some ways is Ubuntu, which is an African proverb, but essentially it says we are who we are because of those around us. So I
Mm.
would encourage you as leaders without judgment, just with observation, some of the words of wisdom I would leave you with is who are you surrounding yourself with? And are those people serving the kind of leader that you want to be? And if they're not, that's okay too. I'm going to screw up this quote, but Tyler Perry was doing an acceptance speech at one point, and Tyler Perry said, "Your life, your career, fill in the blank, is like a rocket ship. And every rocket ship has its boosters to propel that rocket ship into new stratospheres, into new layers of the atmosphere. And as that rocket ship is going up, some of those boosters fall away. And like relationships, sometimes, whether it's client, partners, collaborators, faculty members, employees, loved ones, sometimes those rockets are meant to go to destinations that those boosters are not meant to go.
Mm,
And so they can slow you down or they can help lighten your load. And so, really being thoughtful about the kind of leader that you are is critical because people will naturally follow you when you create that environment that others wish to be a part of.
I love you, but I hate you because you're the mirror. And I'm seeing all those situations I've been in where somebody on me years ago on my team, I had some doubts. Like, just I don't really know. They're not like bringing it on. They have so much. That's a reflection of me in all ways, in all ways. And like you said with the booster rockets propelling to success, I think it goes back to the cliche here for a season or a reason.
And that's why, listen, I say all the time, I'm kind, I'm not overly nice, and there's a difference, right? I know how to give feedback. Molly Langenstein's one of my mentors, and she talks about the 5 T's. She probably learned it from one of her mentors, but teach, train, transfer, tolerate, or terminate. Every once in a while, as leaders, we tolerate bad behavior. That's also human because hopefully we have a heart. But the reality is we have to offer chances and opportunities through teaching and training. And then we make decisions as leaders to transfer the right button, the right seat. We make a decision to tolerate bad behavior or make a decision to terminate. And sometimes not everybody is best at your company. And that's okay. We want to find them the right home so they can be successful. So I don't want people to think on this call that I'm overly nice. What I offer is opportunity. What we offer is opportunity. What we offer is partnership, collaboration, the chance to work together more powerfully.
Mhm.
The chance to amplify your business results. I love good profit margins. We love revenue, right? So there's an opportunity that you can still think about how to drive great business, meaningful business, and you can also respect your people. And clear is kind, kind is clear. Not everybody is meant to work at your organization. Not everybody is meant to be a part of your organization. It doesn't mean you can't be kind to people and drive profitable business results.
You are the booster rocket if you want to
Thank you.
see your business arrive, drive, and thrive, which is the name of your book, SatermanConnect.com.
Yeah.
Wonderful talking with you, Josh. Love everything that you stand for. And I really mean that. Like, I look forward to connecting with you because you know your stuff and everything resonates. You are the mirror.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Steve. It's always a pleasure to connect with you.
Likewise. All right. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.